Here's what we learned after the Browns' second preseason game. DTR still has a lot to improve on, but I think that he showed enough to the point where he is a better option than Tyler Huntley. D'Onta Foreman is clearly the best running back option outside of Nick Chubb, and he should be the starter until Chubb returns. The left tackle situation is bad, but there are solutions. Zaire Mitchell Paden is going to be a legitimate weapon in this offense if used properly, and people should be very excited about him. Siaki Ika had the worst game I've ever seen a professional put on tape, which you knew about in real time if you follow me on Twitter, but there are so many other bright spots on the defensive line that it shouldn't worry us, particularly when it comes to Chris Williams. And Mike Hall Jr. is legit, and we need to be praying that some form of resolution will come through this year, because he will make Myles Garrett have his best season as a pro to date. So let's start off with QB. As of today, when I'm filming this, Tuesday, August the 20th, there are some whispers about potentially trading DTR because he brings a lot of value. He's on a rookie contract, he's young, he's shown sparks, and he could realistically become a starter in this league one day. I've talked at length about it this entire offseason, but in my deepest desires, DTR will remain on this team. So let's talk about his performance first. There were two bad penalties on first down that derailed the progress he was trying to put forward, which speaks to a larger issue of discipline and focus, but I'm not going to harp on that too much because I know that this is not the first team group. It still is an issue though. But like I was saying, DTR showed some very good composure and production early on. However, once things started to go bad, they got really bad. And that is the issue with Dorian Thompson Robinson. In his two starts last year, I'm not really counting the Baltimore one because he was thrown out there, you would see really good progress and composure, but then there would be these long streaks, drives at a time, quarters at a time, where he just looked out of sorts, like he was panicking. And I think that is the problem that I highlighted in the early video before the preseason started. He has to be emotionally mature enough to the point where when things go bad, you're not hanging your head, you're not having bad body language, you're simply looking forward to the next series, and then you're going to turn it on and recover from that point. Like I said, when things get bad, they get bad. He had the missed handoff, and I would put this on DTR, not Foreman. It looked like he opened up to the wrong side on the play action fake, and then he's running around, panics, and almost takes a safety. This is the kind of unraveling that you can't have. But then just like that, in the 2-minute drill, when it matters most, DTR puts it together and really starts putting together a very nice drive. The throw to Giovanni Ricci, but then later on, there's the interception that goes to Jamari Thrash. And I would say that they are both equally at fault. Yes, DTR could have had the ball more in front of him, led him, it would have been a completion, but Jamari Thrash got his body to this ball. He needs to pluck it out, make the catch, and make the quarterback right. So I'm not putting too much stock into this because, again, with DTR in this situation that I'm talking about, he's the developmental guy on this team who you are building forward to for a potential future start. But we're going to have to see how this shakes out because DTR clearly is the more valuable player, which means he's a more valuable trade asset. So after this last week, we could see him gone. I'll be very sad because, again, I think that he has a ton of potential down the line once he can mature a bit more, once he can learn to string it together and be a true professional, but we will have to see. So now D'Onta Foreman. About 4 months ago, it was pre-draft, I made a video that Jerome Ford should be traded because his draft value, or his trade value rather, will never be higher than the point that it was at after last season. He got a full year being the RB1, 800 yards rushing, showed a lot of value as a receiver, but in general, he was not ever going to be a true RB1 in the Browns system. He would have been very valuable to a desperate team. You could have flipped a pick for him. And after the Browns signed Foreman, it was clear to me that Foreman should be the running back one for this unit while Chubb is out. And in the case that you have injuries on the offensive line, you're not going to be dancing behind the line of scrimmage and potentially losing yards. You're going to cut your losses, put your head down because you're a bigger bodied guy, and neutralize it for a 0-yard gain or maybe even a 1 or a 2-yard gain because you can plow forward because you have the strength and the aggressiveness. It was really exciting to see Foreman in this first game. He did well catching the ball out of the backfield, and he was a battering ram in those moments where, like I was saying, you cut your losses, you put your head down, and you go. That is what this team needs. They need a reliable first and second down ball carrier who's going to keep you ahead of the chains, even if it's at most a 3-yard gain. 3-yard run, 3-yard run gives you 3rd and 4. That is a lot more promising than a lot of the situations that Ford's running style put Cleveland in on 2nd and 3rd down last year. If the offensive line issue at left tackle isn't addressed by week 1, Foreman needs to be the guy. And regardless, I think he needs to be the guy because that style of play is more conducive with what Cleveland's running philosophy actually is. Really liked what I saw. I feel like most people did. And I think him with Chubb and Nyheim Hines, once everyone is healthy, is going to be a very vicious running attack with a great change of pace. And then Pierre Strong and Jerome Ford are just going to have to go to war to be that change of pace receiving downs back. So now the left tackle situation. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it is a very fluid situation. By the time this video is finished and edited and uploaded, there might be another new left tackle on this roster. But even if and when Jed Wills is healthy, that is not really addressing the left tackle issue. Jed Wills is not a legitimate long-term answer to Cleveland's left tackle issue. As of today, also Cleveland signed a new left tackle, Chim Okafor, who's an undrafted guy out of Benedictine. To me, there's only one long-term answer when it comes to the Browns left tackle situation, and it's shifting Jack Conklin from right tackle to left. He's an all-pro level tackle when healthy. He played left tackle in college, and even though he spent the bulk of his NFL career, or all of it for that matter, at right tackle, I still trust him being able to make that switch over a healthy left tackle who was an undrafted free agent or someone who they traded that was buried on someone else's roster. If we're confident in swinging a guy like James Hudson to various spots, or even putting Bitonio as an emergency left tackle in the game, why are we not trusting that Conklin can make that switch? I think that quietly Cleveland is planning to make this move, because if you had Conklin and Wills platooning at the left tackle position who can make up for one another if one of them gets injured, you can leave DeWand at the right tackle, which is typically the less important position to have a strong starter in. You can band-aid that a little bit more. No one is selling good left tackles at this point in the year, and I think that any of the available free agent guys like the David Bakhtiaris, they've been injured a ton, they're unproven, they're older. It seems like more of a gamble than just trusting that a guy who used to play left tackle, who is an all-pro right tackle, can make the move over. That is where I would putting all of my stock in this, and that is who I think is the actual best long-term answer for Cleveland. He's still under contract. He's getting paid a lot. Make him work. Make him make that switch. None of this is ideal, but who do you trust more? A former all-pro right tackle who used to play left tackle to make the switch, or someone off the street? Let's touch on an offensive weapon who's extremely promising for the Browns. Zaire Mitchell Paden, aka RUN ZMP. If you hear that nickname anywheres, you know that I said it first on Twitter, so let them know that the Optimistic Fan Club holds the rights to that title. It's not that creative, but just to let you know. After the first preseason game, I did an entire segment on Zaire Mitchell Paden. I thought that the way he caught the ball, what he did after the catch, what he did as a blocker, and his frame and play style was so exciting and conducive to what the Browns try to do with their tight ends. You want a carbon copy, or as close as you can get to your starter to be your backup. That means when someone goes down, you can insert them in and your philosophy and approach doesn't change. No, he's not going to be as productive or as explosive as David Njoku. He's one of one, but the drop off won't be as severe. Consider it this way. Last year when Chubb went down and Ford came in, the Browns' run approach completely changed because their style of play was completely different. You went from having a decisive runner to a guy who spent the most time out of anyone in the league behind the line of scrimmage. So in this case, Zaire Mitchell Paden should be the tight end 2 in this unit. He should be getting worked in because he is a weapon. Give guys the opportunity to prove themselves. I hope that he gets a ton of playing time in this final preseason game. Hopefully a couple reps with Deshaun Watson if he does indeed wind up playing and starting, and just let him go, because some guys just turn it on in games. I think that he has way more potential and way more talent than Jordan Akins. So let's try and grow these young guys on the roster, give them opportunities, because late into a season, they're younger, healthier, they stay fresher, they get better as the year goes on. Now on to Siaki Ika. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because if you follow me on Twitter, you know that all day I was tweeting and recording videos of his reps. I didn't even have to rewind and get the bad ones. I was just starting my camera whenever he was on the field and zooming in on him, and the results were devastating. Putting it plain and simple and as bluntly true as possible, he is not an NFL player. He's definitely not an NFL starter. He is at best a somewhat serviceable practice squad guy. This is one of the bigger blunders in the Andrew Berry era, but part of me feels like this was influenced by Jim Schwartz when he arrived. We saw that he was very vocal with him, and it seemed like he had a lot of plans with him after he was drafted.
You're not a dump truck anymore now, boo. You're a Ferrari.
I think that Schwartz wanted a prototypical one tech for his system, and because of this, they overlooked a lot of his flaws, something that a lot of the good draft people recognized. And Cleveland left him out there to dig his own grave. They left him out late into the fourth quarter where he could go against the third and fourth stringers, guys who will not make an NFL roster, and he was still being dominated. He's slipping, he's falling, he's unathletic, can't make any sort of push. He's getting displaced in the run game, and he's largely disappearing as a pass rusher. There's no saving a guy like this. There's no developing him further. He simply doesn't have it. You just have to cut your losses, admit that you made a bad pick, and move on, because there's other guys who you've brought in who have developed really well in the defensive line, and let's get into some of those guys. Look at how Isaiah McGuire has developed. Look at Alex Wright. They're starting to look like real pro football players. And furthermore, you have a guy like Chris Williams who you've brought in who has been popping off the screen since game one. After the first game, I did another whole segment on him, just like ZMP, where he is making a difference when he's out there. He's fast, he's dynamic, he can line up as a tackle, he can line up as a pass rusher on the edge. He's explosive, long arms, 300 pounds. I feel the same way about Chris Williams as I do with the Jack Conklin situation. Just because he's not your left tackle doesn't mean that he can't succeed there and that he won't be better than the other people who you've brought in. Just because Chris Williams isn't a prototypical one tech doesn't mean that he's not going to be better than Siaki Ika is there. I would put my money on Chris Williams being more successful as a one tech 40 pounds lighter than Ika would, just because he is a prototypical one tech. Now, I don't think that's where he would thrive the most. I think that they could find other options who can be better in those positions, but just to say, this is a guy who needs to be getting reps on the field once the regular season starts, or at least getting opportunities every now and then as a fresh set of arms and legs to go in there and make disruptions, because he is a difference maker. And now let's talk about Mike Hall. If there were no off-field issues, which are obviously pretty damning, and I've already talked about those, so I'm not going to touch on them again. We're going to speak purely from a football perspective. If none of those issues were present, this would be a home run pick, because this guy is legit. The speed and pressure that Mike Hall provides as a defensive tackle is something that I don't think we've ever seen in Cleveland. What he does to draw attention away on twists and stunts, to open up alleyways for edge rushers, to get to the quarterback, is something that will make Myles Garrett get the most sacks he has ever had in his career. That is what this guy can do. What he can do with his interior pressure to make a quarterback spill out will just make easy wrap up plays for Myles Garrett. And when a guy is this good, it's very hard to not overlook the off-field problems. It's something that we see around the league all the time. Guys like Tyreek Hill, you can name the list on and on and on. Great players who get into legal trouble, but it ultimately gets swept away because they are as good as they are. I think that Mike Hall is that kind of guy. Not saying it's ethical. We're not going to get into any of that. We're not the morality police. We don't run Cleveland or the Browns. That's not up to us. However, all that we do know is that he is an exceptional young player with an unbelievably bright future if he can pull it together and never make those mistakes again. I think that he makes this Browns defense the best that it has ever been, because defensive tackle and linebacker have been the clearest glaring weaknesses in these units. If you have a guy like that playing consistently, if he can play the whole year, you are being taken to a whole other level. So if you guys haven't been following me on Twitter, please follow me now. Tons of live game day tweets. If you haven't been subscribed yet, subscribe. And if you haven't turned on notifications, turn them on, because we've been going live post game on game days. We're going to do it again to cap off the preseason late on Saturday night. So come hang out, party, and just understand, once the regular season starts, this is going to be a legit live show. It's going to be super fun. We're finishing up a lot, upgrading equipment, the studio, all that stuff. So I hope that you guys will come and stick around. We're probably going to do multiple live shows a week that are going to be fantastic, all encompassing the Browns and the rest of the NFL too. It's going to be like nothing you've seen from any sort of independent NFL YouTuber. So I hope that you guys subscribe, join along. I will put a Patreon link down below that you can join for free and get updates when we do exclusive shows on that platform, because my people, we got to do something to pay the bills over here. I do not want to be running sponsorships mid video. Hopefully that never has to change. So if you want to join the Patreon for free so you can be updated, and then you can make your decision if you're enjoying what you're seeing after week 1 against the Cowboys, when we do that amazing first live show, you might want to stick around and get more content more often. These videos will always remain free, the recaps and whatnot, but we want to add something that is dynamic and just worth your money at a reasonable price. But more to come for that soon. Join for free for now. Subscribe, do all those things, and you guys let me know, who are you most excited to see in this preseason so far? Who do you think should make the roster? What do you think we should do about the DTR Huntley battle? And what do you think we should do about the left tackle situation? Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it as always. Go through those links in the description, and we will see you on Saturday night for the live show, and we'll see you in the next one.